5 months before, Antigua. It was so late at night it was nearly morning. Tiresome, that's what the paperwork was. But, she supposed it had to be done. Other people couldn't remember as she could. She had been amazed when she first realized that not everyone could see things just once and then know them. Charlotte was cataloging for a future replacement, because she wouldn't be here forever. It was lucky she was here at a broken bar. Forensics had not been a choice she had consciously made. It was the law that had attracted her predecessor. But Mr. Hurley had encouraged her, and Charlotte had been ready for the opportunity. It had been her first mistake. There had been others. How could she not love him? She had known him for so long, they had been together for so long. Cambridge had given her the idea, and so she had taken some time off and visited Richard. A broken bar. Visited where Richard was a broken bar. He had begun his police training in the city in which he had been educated. Forensics had been a course that she could have done anywhere. But, equally, Charlotte could choose to take the course anywhere. And she had chosen to take the course in the city where Richard Poole had been so happy. It was funny. A broken bar. Charlotte had found out from her mother that Richard had begun a PhD in astrophysics, which had delighted his father, but had become interested in justice, his mind wholly suited to detective work. Had she had the idea then? When she had heard Richard had changed vocation, grow up, he had shouted at her. Charlotte had refused to cry, knew deep down that it was his father talking. His father, who believed a minute spent with her was a minute he was not getting out there and living his life. Had she had it after his last words to her? She didn't know. But what she did know was that he was close, and that made her feel happy. And so Charlotte Brooke enrolled in forensic science, specializing in criminology at Trinity, and passed the course in 2 years instead of 4. Her parents hadn't been happy, of course, but then, they were never happy. "How will you support yourself?" asked her mother, who Charlotte knew was just asking her so she had something to tell her friends and neighbors. "Prostitution, drug trafficking, terrorism and money laundering, I should think," Charlotte had replied. The conversation had soon finished. She would support herself how she had always done, work back at Mr. Hurley's company, find information for him that he found difficult to discover by himself. Now she could run forensic tests, be a paralegal again, talk to the other lawyers, younger people than Richard Poole, socialize with them, earn money by counting cards in poker games when her funds were getting low, because no paralegal could live in London on her own on her salary. There was a click outside, wind in the trees knocking a branch against a window. Why had he hated her so? She just wanted to be with him. She loved him. And then opportunity arose to be here, in the company of someone else. He had made threats over her land, her home. But Charlotte had done one better and stepped away from Holly, Lane and Cherry, the solicitors, and gone to work for the police, leaving Roberta Weymouth behind. The Metropolitan Police, London. Because she felt safer. Richard had moved there. She felt happier knowing the person she loved most in the world was not far from her. Then, the DCI had called her to see him. He knew of her association with the man she had once dated, who had, before that, threatened her. There was something she knew, and something only she, Charlotte Brooke, could do. But she hadn't given up. She sent Richard a letter when she knew he had been sent away. And the DCI then gave her a choice. Not much of a choice. Not that she needed the alternative. "I need to be back at Rose Cottage by the end of the year, or the ownership is forfeit." "I agree," he told her. With Detective Inspector Poole's abilities, he should be able to get to the bottom of such terrible crime that is infiltrating every Caribbean island and country. You know why. And whom. She did. It had been a terrible shock that night to find out, after months of persecution by the son of the donkey sanctuary owner, that he had decided to claim her home anyway. People had arrived, a broken bar smugglers of guns and bombs and incendiary devices. A broken bar. Charlotte had fled that night and gone back to the DCI, waiting for him from the small hours until he arrived at his office at 9 in the morning. "Things have moved on," he told Charlotte, gravely. "Would you be willing to go undercover, use your skills so you are easier to hide?" Richard had only been one island away. Of course she would go. Perhaps she regretted now the letter she had sent him, with the silver donkey, a token of peace. Maybe he would find out she was at Antigua and come over, and be her Richard again, the one who spent time with her, and went out for walks with her, and taught her everything he knew while Broken Bar. Charlotte closed her eyes and put her hand on the ledger. Nearly finished logging. And maybe she would go out with the handsome man who had come to learn from her criminal forensic science. Charlotte felt more herself in his presence. They would be there soon, Charlotte knew. Not too many hours now and the place would be alive with industry. Right now, there were strange noises and she had locked herself in the pathology laboratory, and found a film to watch on her mobile phone. It was a new one, a good one, which could store large files. Her favorites were stored in its hard drive. Charlotte clicked on File. The 39 Steps by Alfred Hitchcock, based on the book by John Buchan, starring Robert Donat and Madeline Carola. Broken Bar. He can remember anything he has ever read or heard, the music hall compere said, as Charlotte watched one of the opening scenes. And Robert Donat asked, "How far is it to Winnipeg from Montreal?" They used to watch it together, the train going to Edinburgh and into the Highlands, the hidden spy pretending to be a vicar, in a remote manse. Broken Bar, a secret that was about to leave the country. It was amazing what a happy memory, a shared happy memory, could do to lessen the anxiety of one's soul. 88,888,888. 4 months before, Honore Tilda copyright, they watched it together. The 39 Steps. But she had changed. Richard Poole had found that out when he had discovered that she had bought a cottage, pound by pound over the course of 20 years, having sighted her one Friday evening in May and had followed her to Paddington, and then onwards to a train bound for the West Country. The diner he loved would do that, would find that out. Another link of long ago. She liked souvenirs, not large ones, but thoughtful ones. Like the little figurine from Wareham Museum, that documented famous events in history, famous people. Street Mary's even had T.E. Lawrence, killed by motorcycle on its roads in 1935. The machine going up on flames. It had been the burnt carcass of the Bras Superior and the fact it still had coins in the fuel cap, so the man had the money to fill up, that had caused them to visit the museum. Dinah had bought several little pieces, including 2 rocks, with ammonite fossils on that had come from Lyme Regis. And the figurine. "I need to go in here," Dinah had told him. She had been reading a sign in the church by Lawrence's great friend Rupert Brooke, whose family he had known. Here, in Street Mary's, she donated a £1 coin to the transparent Perspex donation box and wrote in the visitor's book, Dinah 7 and the date, 31st of August 1998. But now, she had changed. Richard's father had been right to tell him to leave her alone now, that the time had come to forget about Dinah and to live his own life. So Richard had told her to go away. Dad had told him to. "You will never get a life, find a woman, have family if your mind is on her." But Richard didn't necessarily want these things. What a shock it had been to find out she had accelerated her way to deputy manager of one of the Met's forensic laboratories, qualified in forensics and had worked for a lawyer firm. All at such a young age. And, alone. So he had followed her that August bank holiday, a year before he had gone to St. Marie, to Rose Cottage. But Dinah hadn't been there. Richard Poole had turned at the gate, and was about to stride down the hill when another gate squeaked. He turned his head. Mrs. Raymond, for, though much older, it surely must be her. "She's gone over to Seaton, there's a fair on, stalls and tombola and bring and buy, that sort of thing," Mrs. Raymond told Richard. And he had thanked the woman he had known so long ago, and had taken a taxi to Seaton. Then she had seen her, with him, and knew she why it was following him. Not out of affection at all, there was no love there now, it was clear. His father and her mother had been right. There she had been, with him, the son of the donkey sanctuary owner, without a care in the world. He had told his DCI. Within a week he had been posted urgently to a Caribbean island to investigate the death of Charlie Hummy. Broken Bar. The letter arrived about a fortnight later. Broken Bar. Dinah had found him again, along with a letter, bringing forth all his deeply buried feelings, wrapped in tissue, a silver donkey trinket that had been a year ago. And now, Charlotte Brooke had turned up in the Caribbean, a broken bar. A broken bar to be the head of the very place where D.I. Richard Poole's team sent forensic samples. A broken bar. The Caribbean was important. A broken bar. Crucial for it to be here. A broken bar. Charlotte Brooke's SHD was called a broken bar. He would have to keep a very close eye on her, and him. Neil Stevenson. As if the name fooled anyone. Charlotte Brooke, head of forensics, St. Martin, Antigua. As of 13th of November, 2011, Richard Poole replaced the notebook back inside his desk, lodges at the back of the drawer, and looked across to Detective Sergeant Camille Bawdy. Thank goodness the commissioner hadn't insisted he send Camille the missing children. He asked of her, and she lifted her lovely head and smiled at him for a second. All three teenage boys from Jamaica, last seen sailing at St. Paul. Yes, Camille confirmed, glancing at the facts that had come in. But how did you know a broken bar? I'll tell you, Richard told her, glancing back at his desk. But not right now. Stevenson's gone. Right. But, was he absolutely sure? For Roberta Weymouth was registered as being the forensic analyst at Holly, Lane and Cherry, solicitous. A broken bar. No, thought Richard Poole. Again, not right now, for someone was playing a very long game, and he needed to be patient.